Hi guys, Marcel here with The Pulse. A few weeks ago, the FDA started to make some moves towards banning NMN as a dietary supplement in the United States. And we still don't know the outcome of this ban, but what a lot of people in the industry and a lot of people who consume and take NMN as a supplement for health reasons, what they hope for is that they'll make the same decision that they did, a temporary stopgap measure called enforcement discretion, and they exercised this for another supplement called NAC. And while we wait for this hopeful outcome, I got to thinking about the connection of the FDA and the drug industry. And I couldn't help but think about drug advertisements on TV, because I visited my parents recently in the States, and the 10 days leading up to the election, all of the ads were either drug ads or political ads. And they basically look pretty similar, by the way, probably paid for by the same companies. And I asked my parents, and I said to them, boy, you guys better be buying a lot of drugs because they're certainly shoving them down your throat on TV. And both my parents said, so tired of these ads. And I got to thinking, I wonder if that's the sentiment most people have. I mean, it would stand to reason. Why would anyone like watching these ridiculous drug ads where you show an older person and they're kind of suffering and lightheaded, and you show their grandkids and how they're playing outside and the grandmother can't play with them. And then suddenly, the grandmother takes this medicine and then she's out there playing with her grandchildren. Who wouldn't want to be? What elderly person wouldn't want to be the grandmother that's knitting the sweater for Billy instead of saying, Billy, I don't feel good. And this is manipulative, and it's evil, and it shouldn't be allowed. And it's not. It's illegal. Drug advertising is illegal throughout the entire world, with the exception of the United States and New Zealand. So America and New Zealand are the only places where you'll even see these manipulative drug ads. And I thought, why? How are they able to do this in the United States? What's the reasoning behind it? And it turns out the reasoning behind it is the FDA feels that the elderly need to be told what drugs to tell their doctors to give them. Doctors can't make decisions on their own. They need to brainwash, they need to manipulate the elderly, psychological manipulation, so that they can go tell the doctors what drugs to give them. And this is in the public interest. Well, the AMA doesn't agree. In fact, they voted, the AMA, which is the American Medical Association, comprised of and representing the doctors of the United States, they voted to support a ban on drug advertising in 2015. So the whole reason, this undermines the whole reasoning, at least from the doctor's perspective, that they need to be told by their elderly patients what drugs to prescribe them. Now, I got curious about my own viewers, which are comprised mostly of Americans, at least half, and ages of over 40 years old. How do you guys feel about television ads for drugs, prescription drugs? And 94% of you so far, and the poll's still up in the community section, you can go vote. So far, 94% of you have said, yes, drug ads should be banned on television in the United States. So it's not very popular. In fact, the drug companies are not very popular right now on the heels of the pandemic. Only 38% of the public in a recent poll are supportive of the drug industry in general. And this is down from 60%. Not super high, but pre-pandemic numbers were around 60%. So public sentiment is mounting against the drug industry and hence the FDA. And maybe that's where some of the pressure to give here and there, to bend but don't break, is allowing things like enforcement discretion to happen with certain dietary supplements that the public feels passionate about. They don't want an uproar. Matter of fact, an uproar is the only thing that the FDA seems to fear other than upsetting the apple cart of the drug industry and the politicians that have voted repeatedly to back the drug industry. Now, they spend $5 billion a year advertising drugs on TV in the United States and almost nothing in the rest of the world. And what is the result of that? The result is you pay 2.5 times, 2.56 times as much as the rest of the world pays for prescription drugs. So it's double insult. You have to watch these pathetic, manipulative ads. And then you have to pay more for the prescription drugs, or primarily the elderly, because no one else is watching television. So the people seeing most of these ads, young people on YouTube, have ad blockers, a lot of them. So they're not watching those ads either. They're targeted towards the elderly. That's their customer base. It's primarily their customer base. Most of the people who take prescription drugs in America are over 50 years old. Young people don't need prescription drugs. The elderly do. So it brings us back to NMN. NMN, which is benefiting so many of the elderly people on this channel. I can only speak to the ones that I interact with. And I've interacted with over 1,000 people taking NMN. 80% are reporting benefits. And many of them are in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. And many of them have commented that they no longer need to take as many prescription drugs. And they're no longer getting sick. I myself am no longer getting sick since I started taking NMN just over a year ago. So it's really not in the drug industry's best interest that we're taking NMN. And if they do take it over, they're going to charge you for it. There's a belief out there that somehow by making NMN a drug, it's going to become more affordable. Well, not in the US. You're going to pay 2.5 times the rest of the world pays for it because it's going to be advertised on television. But that's after it trickles out for only a couple illnesses that it's even being tested for. Once they approve it as a drug, it can only be used by prescription for a diagnosed disease that's approved for that drug. So the outlook for NMN with the FDA's involvement is not very good. What would be better is to reclassify supplements as natural medicine, essentially what they do in Australia. The TGA has a couple different forms of medicine that they register. There's registered medicine and there's complementary medicine, medicines that are approved to take as natural ingredients. Now they approve these and then they test them. So they go to the individual supplement companies and test these natural medicines. But the FDA doesn't even have a database of them. As a matter of fact, one senator just he basically tabled a measure that was put forth for Congress to vote on in this session, a lame duck session, to create such a database by the FDA. So I wish someone would intercede on behalf of Americans, the public, and at least create a database to begin the process towards testing supplements for safety. But I have to also say the whole safety and fake supplement question, I also believe is suspect because 20 to 30% of the drugs are fake throughout the world. So even prescription drugs are fake. There's no guarantee you're not going to have fake NMN just because you make it a drug. It can still be faked and will be faked throughout the world. And then there are illegal drugs, which flood into the United States, which they are not able to dent at all. So even if they make this an illegal supplement, what are the chances they're ever going to keep it out of the public? Probably very low. So this problem is clearly much bigger than just NMN or the supplement industry in general. So what the FDA really should be doing is banning ads for prescription drugs, just as the rest of the world has already done, except for New Zealand. See you soon.